A former Olympian from West Des Moines is using what he learned to help other Olympians. He traveled to Milan to work with Team USA athletes before they even came out for the opening ceremony.
In 1992, Carlos Kirby became the first athlete from Iowa to ever compete in the Olympic Winter Games.
Carlos Kirby is a trailblazer, putting Iowa on the international stage in '92 and again in '94.
Once an Olympian, always an Olympian, and there's nothing else like it.
The West Des Moines native competed in bobsledding for Team USA.
My first Olympics, we're a country of 330 million people, and we had a U.S. Olympic delegation of 121 people. So there aren't very many people who get to do it.
Kirby was one of a few, and someone who many Iowans looked up to.
I'm a pretty private guy, so the people who would come up and want autographs and want to take pictures.
Kirby became involved with the Olympic Committee after his last race in '94, serving through the Vancouver Games in 2010.
When the opportunity came to help and they asked again, I thought, you know what, yeah, this would be something I'd love to be able to do.
For Milan Cortina 2026, Kirby was asked to introduce Team USA athletes to sponsors and help them get settled in Italy.
It takes me back to when I was competing, and it was just a great experience, and so for me it's a no-brainer to be able to do something like this.
A no-brainer to use his own experience to shape the experience for current U.S. Olympians.
This is your opportunity to shine. You are very special. Absorb that, go out and make the most of being here because you are special and you deserve this.
Now Kirby got to meet pretty much all the USA athletes in Milan. He was very excited to chat with Zach Stoppelmoor, a speed skater who also went to Valley High School.
Pushing the polls, Iowa's Secretary of State unveils a program to increase voter turnout among Iowa's young people. Local 5's Emily Carlson joins us in studio to explain. Emily.
Well, Stephanie, in 2024, turnout among voters under the age of 35 lagged 15 to 20 points behind voter turnout of those in higher and older generations. Data shows that once people vote for the first time, they're much more likely to become voters for life. And people who vote are more likely to be active in their community in a litany of ways. Today, Paul Pate unveiled the CAT Collegiate Challenge. The hope is that Iowa colleges and universities host voter registration drives to make the voting process more accessible and exciting. It's also a friendly competition between the schools to see who can register the most students. It's an effort Quinn Margaret, an Iowa State University student, says is much needed.
A disheartening number of students came to our on-campus polling location, unsure of where to go, what documentation they needed, and especially for students coming from out of state, even whether they were eligible at all to vote here in the state of Iowa.
Of course, here in Iowa, we have a long history of helping narrow down presidential candidates when the interest in a big election is enormous. The hope is to excite students about all kinds of elections, including some that may not get a lot of attention, like primaries, school board or city council races, and referendums. 10 Iowa colleges and universities have already pledged to participate, including Coe College, Cornell College, Iowa State University, Kirkwood Community College, and the University of Northern Iowa. Stephanie.
February is American Heart Month, dedicated to raising awareness about cardiovascular health. As Local 5's J.D. Snover explains, one metro school district is stepping up in a big way. Lawmakers are considering aid to help others follow suit.
Here in the Sadell Community School District, they're what's known as heart-safe schools. That means more than just the school nurse is trained in the event of a cardiovascular emergency. Now, that's not the case in every school district statewide. However, there is a push to change that. In April of 2025, Sadell became the first Des Moines metro area district to be designated as heart-safe schools by Project Atom, a nationwide nonprofit dedicated to training staff on sudden cardiac arrest incidents.
I think the important part of that is, it can happen to anybody. It's not grandpa, grandma. It can happen to a young child, anybody at any moment.
Haley Niles and Rachel Damastis are nurses in the Sadell district who know firsthand the importance of being ready for any type of health emergency. But
you also need multiple hands. You need someone to do CPR. You need someone to grab the AED. You need someone to flag down the ambulance, call 911. You really do need a whole team approach.
That team approach is exactly what lawmakers are considering supporting. A pair of companion bills at the Iowa legislature would create a grant program within the Department of Education to help schools build out cardiac emergency response plans.
This is our most important part, is saving more lives, saving more students, including families who use a lot of athletic facilities and schools where they have functions.
Saydell already has a similar system in place, and Niles and Damascus say it's making a world of difference.
We're overall a safer school, community, district.
Now, one of these bills must pass the committee level by Friday, or it will be dead for the year because of the first final deadline. In Saylor Township, I'm JD Snover, Local 5 News.
The city of West Des Moines is looking at repurposing an area that includes the old Valley West Inn, the University Avenue corridor. Planned unit development would bring a mix of residential, commercial, and office structures. Local 5's Alex Fulton is in studio with more about the city's vision. Alex.
Stephanie, the goal of the University Avenue corridor planned unit development is to make the area more walkable. If it is approved, it would govern the development and redevelopment of the district.
We plan on breathing new life into this area.
The West Des Moines City Council on Monday advanced a proposal to reimagine an area right by Valley West Mall. It's between Valley West Drive and 36th Street and between Westtown Parkway and Westtown Place.
We need to make sure that we have enough revenue to support the infrastructure that needs to be put in and to be able to provide the services, continue to provide the services to our citizens that they expect and they deserve.
The plan states the 650-plus acre lot would be split into 5 parcels, but it didn't specify what could be coming in. No restaurant drive-thrus, car washes, or car dealerships will be allowed in any of the parcels.
I do have a lot of concerns about the traffic that's going to pick up.
Penny Bassman, who owns a building in the area in question, called on the council to conduct a traffic study.
If you're coming out of some of those properties right now, you can't turn right unless if it's peak hours because people are getting on the freeway.
Councilman Greg Hudson responded, saying the same streets could handle the congestion during Valley West Mall's heyday 2 decades ago.
At this exact moment, while I'm appreciating the traffic and the concern about the traffic, it seems like this PUD at this moment will probably have less effect.
Now, the planned unit development will have to go through 2 more readings before it is adopted. It does not include the Valley West Mall, but Mayor Trimble says he can't wait to share more about the mall's future, emphasizing it'll blow people's socks off. Stephanie?
The University of Northern Iowa community is still grieving the loss of one of their student athletes.
Yeah, over the weekend, Panthers tight end Parker Sutherland passed away. He was only 18 years old. After Parker's death, the UNI community came together to honor his legacy. A moment of silence was held during UNI's match against West Virginia. Head football coach Todd Stepsis spoke about Parker's impact on the team.
You know, if I could have 110 Parkers, I would. But, you know, we're not going to be able to replace him. But who he is as a person, I mean, he always had a smile on his face. He always made people feel good about themselves.
Stepsis says that Parker collapsed during or after warm-ups, should I say, during a team workout on Thursday, and he died 2 days later. His cause of death has not yet been revealed. And those back in Parker's hometown are also honoring his life.
And he's from Iowa City and played football, basketball, and baseball at Iowa City High School. Local 5's Emma Stroner is in studio. And Emma, you talked to his high school football coach, who is remembering the type of player he was.
That's right, Dana and Joseph. I want to bring your attention to this sign beside me. It's posted at Iowa City High School and says, "Dedicated in memory of our little Hawks who didn't get a chance to spread their wings." That's a memorial that his high school football coach, Mitch Moore, visited the day after Parker passed away. Moore tells me they also put Parker's number 88 on the 50-yard line Friday night, and hundreds gathered to grieve together. Moore coached Parker all throughout his high school career and coaches players that were teammates of his. When I asked him how he's going about leading a team that's navigating the loss of a past player, here's what he said.
My challenge and to myself and to our program and to the people around me is just to continue to put one foot in front of the other and keep leading in my situation and showing up for the kids and going through your daily routine as much as you can, because that's what Parker did.
He says it was incredible to watch Parker go on from City High football to putting on that UNI uniform. Younger athletes looked up to him, including his 3 sons. Now, Moore tells me Parker made joy out of tough situations and always lived in the moment. What I learned from my conversation with Moore, too, is that, yes, many people knew Parker for his dedication to sports, but he doesn't want the kind of person he was to get lost in that. He says at the end of the day, he's remembering him for how he treated others and how he made them feel. Joseph.
Sounds like a special young man. Emma, thank you.
Residents in Mitchellville are feeling hopeful tonight as the town begins to move forward following a slew of resignations earlier this year. Local 5's J.D. Snover spoke with voters and has more from the small Iowa town.
Voters have been hitting the polls all day long here at Mitchellville City Hall as the town looks to move forward following recent turmoil. Earlier this year, 2 council members resigned on top of another seat that was already vacant, leaving Mitchellville without enough members to conduct official business. The city was also left without a police force when the entire department resigned, leaving them no choice but to contract with the sheriff's office. Now voters are choosing who they want to help steer the town out of the gridlock. And while opinions differ on the best path forward, many residents share a similar hope.
We need to get back to being the small community that we've been in the past.
How do you do that?
By people being open and honest. You know, admit when you're wrong. You know, come together. We can disagree, but we can do it civilly.
Bianchi says the past few months have left many residents with more questions than answers, but she hopes new leadership can restore trust and stability. That's also the message from the city's remaining government. Councilmember Connor Trevelyan, one of the 2 still serving, tells Local 5 in a statement the turmoil has, quote, only harmed the citizens of the city. He says he's spoken with candidates and believes they're, quote, unified in repairing and improving our culture, essential systems and services, and ensuring everyone here has a better quality of life. For Bianchi, rebuilding Mitchellville starts with something simple.
Get off Facebook. Meet your neighbors.
In Mitchellville, I'm J.D. Snover, Local 5 News.
And right now, a Drake professor is in Italy coaching Olympians on how to prepare mentally before they go out and compete. Local 5's Alex Fulton is in studio with more on what she's doing and how she got the gig. Alex.
Well, Stephanie, Stacey Nashinsky is working with Australian Olympians competing in aerial skiing, snowboard cross, and mogul skiing. She told me it was one of the most rigorous interview processes she's ever been through.
From the time you wake up here to the time you go to bed, you're pretty much on.
It takes physical toughness to become an Olympian.
People are sort of just more overtly recognizing the mental side of the game.
But they have to be in the right headspace too.
We actually think about it more like a skill, just like running, dribbling a basketball, all those things. They take practice.
That's where Stacey Nashinsky comes in. She's a Drake professor working for the Olympic Winter Institute of Australia for the 2026 Winter Games.
You can really come in with a mindset and approach that helps you be more proactive and productive in your thinking.
Nashinsky's PhD advisor is also on the institute and recommended she apply when a position opened. She got the job and worked in the 2022 Winter Olympics.
It was not an expected turn in my career, especially 2 years into being a professor at Drake. But it was kind of an opportunity couldn't pass.
Her role in Italy is simple. Make sure the Australian athletes are set up for success.
There's actual things that we can implement, strategies that we can deploy to help people focus, to help people calm their stress.
One strategy is to stay focused on what they can control.
Delays, unpredictable weather patterns. We have to make sure the course is safe for everyone to compete on. And sometimes that means you're sitting up there waiting, to put down your run. You're starting to get cold. What's your plan?
Another is to lock in come competition time.
In mogul skiing, for example, really very rarely are you performing for more than 20 to 30 seconds at a time. And in aerials, you have one jump that lasts even less than that. So can you get your mind clear and focused for about a minute to just settle in and execute on demand?
Each and every technique getting athletes closer to the gold.
This is an immense privilege for me to be here and have an opportunity to work with some of the world's best in their craft.
When she gets back, Nashinsky will use many of the same strategies with her Drake students. She plans to teach them basic breathing exercises and repetition to build up their confidence. Stephanie?
Today, the Iowa High School Boys State Wrestling Tournament kicks off.
Now, sessions start at 4 o'clock tonight, and the last one takes place at 5:15 on Saturday, all over at the Casey Center. Local 5's Emma Stroner is live in downtown Des Moines, where this is all happening. Emma, exciting day. Good morning.
Dana and Joseph, good morning. Now listen, I'm not Raina or Trey, so I'm not an expert on all the players that are going to come here and all the moves they're going to break out right on these mats. But I can tell you about the impact this is going to have, because in just a little bit, this arena, it's empty now, but in a little bit, it's going to be packed with thousands of people. And those people are going to get the full Des Moines experience. For high schools and their wrestlers, the next 3 days are some of the biggest of the year. But that also holds true for local restaurants.
Wrestling's usually our busiest.
Full Court Press operates 13 restaurants in the metro, with several just blocks away from the Casey Center, where the Iowa High School Boys State Wrestling Tournament takes place. They mark state wrestling on their calendar early every year, so workers are prepared and the beer is fully stocked.
We definitely make sure we have a lot of Busch Light on hand. That's one that we make sure we do.
Wednesday to Saturday, Full Court Press expects lots of foot traffic, from traveling families to wrestlers looking to make weight.
We're always busy. We have a lot of people strolling through in between meets, in between the events up at the Casey Center, and we just kind of are ready for it.
With about 10,000 people coming to Des Moines, restaurants won't be visitors only stop.
They're shopping in our shops, they're visiting our attractions, they're staying in our hotels.
It's on Full Court Press's calendar, and you can bet it's on Catch Des Moines too.
We work with our community partners. We alert them and let them know, hey, the state tournament's coming or X event is coming into town. Just letting them know of that influx that's going to be in the community is huge.
A result of that influx?
We see about a $1.5 million economic impact from state wrestling alone.
In other words, lots of money. Whether you're spending that money on a burger or a souvenir, those dollars mean more than what they're worth.
They're spending those outside dollars in our community that we wouldn't have otherwise without these events. So it's super important. It's really a community effect across the board. And if you just come down here that weekend and see it, it's really incredible to see all of those people just fill the city.
Dana, Joseph, like you said earlier, everything kicks off today at 4 p.m. But stay up to date with us both on air and online, because throughout the weekend we're going to have some full sports coverage for you. Live from the Casey Center, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.
Des Moines city leaders are taking a closer look at what Des Moines can afford next year. And today they got a more clear picture of that. Staff spent hours briefing the council on the latest budget proposals. Local 5's J.D. Snover's in studio with more on what's driving the decisions.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stephanie. The city council met with staff for hours today to go over the current proposal. They're proposing over $255 million be spent from the general fund, which covers day-to-day costs like policing and park maintenance. That's a decrease of nearly $18 million from that fund from 2 years ago. And officials say the decline could only be the beginning. City Manager Scott Sanders says state-level property tax restructuring has made budgeting increasingly unpredictable the last few years, pushing the city into what he describes as alternating cycles.
We found ourselves strategically looking at a cycle of budgets that are good year, bad year rotations.
Typically, odd-numbered fiscal years, like the upcoming fiscal year 2027, benefit from property revaluations that boost the general fund. But Sanders says last year's tight margins are still affecting this year's planning.
Even though it's the better year of the rotation, it actually still required some cuts, most of which is due to the fact that we needed to utilize about $2.5 million, a little more, for the current year. We had to use fund balance to solve the past cycle.
This year's proposal includes cutting 16 city positions. Most of those roles are currently vacant, but 3 employees will still be laid off, according to Sanders.
But unfortunately, 2 of the 3 are going to be really hard. There aren't any vacancies today that directly correlate with a similar job.
City leaders say closing this year's gap is only part of the challenge. The bigger concern is long-term stability, as state lawmakers consider major changes to Iowa's property tax system and the governor publicly pushes for reduced local spending.
We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we know it's bad.
The city must approve its budget by April 30th, which is the statewide deadline, and council members expect to start talking about next year's budget almost immediately once state lawmakers finalize those property tax reforms they've promised this year. Stephanie?
Over at the Capitol, Iowa lawmakers are discussing what kinds of books your child should be allowed to check out of the library. Local 5's Emily Carlson joins us in studio with that debate. Emily.
Well, Stephanie, right now there's about 15 library bills circulating around the Capitol. Some of them have to do with the term age appropriate. Tonight, librarians are asking lawmakers, what does that mean? Who should decide that? And how do they enforce it? Yesterday, House Study Bill 720 made it out of committee. The bill would shift local control from a local library board to the city council. Many librarians say that lawmakers are trying to regulate problems that don't exist. They say that illegal content is already illegal and that city councils who don't have the knowledge and skill to make decisions shouldn't be allowed to determine what age appropriate means.
Some parents are going to be equipped to have their children read Anne Frank when they're the same age Anne Frank was when she lived those experiences. Some parents are not going to feel comfortable with it. Our job as library practitioners is to make it available for you, to not impose government restrictions that allow you to make the choice for yourself.
Sarah Hemlock is president-elect of the American Library Association, is also concerned because if under the bill passes, libraries fail to comply, they could lose state funding. Supporters argue that the bill strengthens parental rights, increases accountability, and ensures taxpayer-funded libraries are not providing minors access to sexually explicit material. The bill's author admitted when the bill passed out of committee that it still needs some work. The bill is now in the full House Government Committee.
The owner of Vietnam Cafe says she has no choice but to close for good. She's losing her space to make way for the latest addition at Merle Mall. Local 5's Alex Fulton explains how the community can help.
It's just so much memory here at Merle Mall.
In 15 years, Vietnam Cafe has gotten countless awards and accolades.
That's the reason why I am still standing right here talking to you. All those awards, that's all the love from customers have for me.
Owner Brenda Tran learned last month her home at the Merle Mall will be going away.
When they told me the news, I'm sorry. It's just hard for me. It's just really hard for me to accept it.
She says mall managers told her they'll be getting rid of all the stalls to use the space for the future sports and entertainment arena.
They say they got approved for the new development, and now they say they don't want the food court, and we have to go.
In a statement to Local 5, the mall's CEO Liz Holland said, "We have been working with our food court tenants throughout this process to make sure they understood our timeline and opportunities to relocate within the mall. Those conversations are ongoing." Tran isn't sure of when she'll have to be out of this food court by. However, she's planning ahead and already thinking of where to go next.
I want to continue to do what I love to do. Get out of here, continue.
Tran wants to move somewhere in Urbandale, but she lacks the funds due to declining sales.
All the year I'm here, I just make enough to cover day by day.
That's why she's hosting a fundraiser at the food court from 6 to 10 p.m. on Sunday.
I don't know, it's hard to leave this mall, but nothing I can do.
In Des Moines, Alex Fulton, Local 5 News.
Des Moines Public Schools just shared their State of the Schools address. Officials gave updates on the district's accomplishments and challenges in 2025, as well as goals for the next school year. Local 5's Emma Stroner has a full recap.
After a shakeup last fall,
we cannot ignore the events and challenges of late September
and the fallout from that in the months following.
It was a moment which brought understandable concern and emotion across our community.
DMPS is still excited to share their accomplishments in this year's State of the Schools.
Reimagining education, the largest school bond in Iowa history.
That includes progress on their Reimagining Education plan, including approving the sale of $100 million in bonds and starting 7 construction projects.
Momentum, a plan, and one another.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have all that we need to make this work for our kids.
But like any school district, things can't be perfect.
Academic accomplishment is always, job one and the area that you can never do well enough on.
Officials didn't mention this at State of the Schools, but when I talked to spokesperson Phil Rader on Wednesday, he says some schools are below average in academic performance.
We had 25 of our schools that were above the state average on assessment, which is great and an improvement, moving in the right direction, but that still means that we have another 30 or so schools that are below the state average.
Still, that's not stopping them from setting goals for the next school year and the rest of 2026.
The school board sets clear goals for the superintendent, including increasing English language arts proficiency in 4th and 8th grade and expanding the number of students earning a Diploma Plus within 4 years.
DMPS is still waiting for lawmakers to decide how much state aid schools get here in Iowa. They're expecting legislators to pass about a 1.75% increase, which is right around what they were planning for. In Des Moines, Emma Stroner, Local 5 News.
Today marks a key deadline for Iowa lawmakers. It's known as the first funnel, and it's designed to weed out ideas that don't have legs. There's some exceptions, though, like the state budget and the property tax bills. Local 5's J.D. Snover is at the Capitol with updates on bills that we have been following.
The end of this week marks the first funnel deadline in the Iowa legislature. That means if a bill hasn't been passed through the full committee level at this point, it's probably dead as a standalone issue.
There's a lot of bills, yeah.
That's how Senate Majority Leader Mike Klimisch describes the first few weeks of this year's session. He says he reads through new bills each night, but even for him, the volume's been a lot.
I've got a lot of bandwidth, and I'm telling you, there's evenings it's just been a struggle.
Still, the session pushes forward, with some proposals advancing and others falling to this week's funnel deadline. A big focus this year, eminent domain and whether private projects should be allowed to use it. Klimisch says talks are happening, but mostly behind closed doors.
A forced conversation, in my opinion, doesn't usually yield the best fruit.
And it's a conversation that Democrats say they've been left in the dark on.
We're waiting to see what moves forward and if there's a compromise offered. Otherwise, we're just where we were a couple of weeks ago.
Some of the bills Local 5 has told you about that are still alive include proposals expanding restrictions on LGBTQ-related content in schools, setting new rules for what's age-appropriate in libraries, and increasing penalties for animal torture. Meanwhile, lawmakers have already shelved other high-profile ideas, like defining life as beginning at conception and a proposal letting couples opt out of no-fault divorce. So, does that make for a successful session so far? Well, that depends on who you ask.
I think for the most part, the policy, policy areas that I wanted to see movement in, we've seen bills that are introduced.
They're not addressing what people are concerned about, lowering costs, education. They're doing bills on annexing Galena, Illinois, and paying for a billionaire's football stadium.
At the state capitol, I'm J.D. Snover, Local 5 News.